Hello, hello, and welcome to another podcast episode of Overpowering Emotions, where I talk all things big emotions, emotion regulation. Today, I actually wanted to talk about the science of emotional contagion. Our brains are wired to pick up and mirror emotions. I always talk about how our nervous systems really kind of talk to each other. And we've got these mirror neurons in our brain. And that's what's really happening. So these mirror neurons, it's brain cells that fire when we see someone else experiencing an emotion. So for example, if a child smiles at you, your brain sort of automatically lights up as if you're smiling as well. If a coworker walks in frustrated, your brain is going to register that frustration and maybe make you feel more tense, right? Versus if they walked in with a bright smile. This is a very automatic process. We don't have to think about it. Our brain just absorbs and reflects whatever those emotions are around us, and it can spread in seconds. This was really useful for survival. Early on, it helped humans, back in caveman days, pick up on whatever danger was around them immediately, right? We needed to be able to immediately see if there's danger and act. It also really helped us bond with others as well, which was also important. We needed to be part of the tribe. But today, that means if we surround ourselves with stress, with frustration, with negativity, with crisis, the world just seems to be in a constant crisis, we are absorbing that energy without even realizing it. And guess who absorbs our emotions the most? Children. They are emotional sponges, especially young ones. They don't have strong emotional boundaries yet. And so that means they are taking on all of the feelings of people around them, and especially the important adults around them. If we're feeling stressed, they feel it. If we're frustrated, they absorb it. If we're calm and steady, they're going to pick that up too. This happens before they even understand what emotions are. Babies start to mirror their caregivers' faces before they know what happy or sad, what those even mean. We see this all the time with babies and they're looking, right? And we see a lot of that social referencing. In the classrooms, it's huge too. I mean, it's not just parents, it's a teacher's mood. They can set the emotional tone for the entire classroom. A stressed, overwhelmed teacher really creates an environment where kids feel the same way, even when they don't know why, right? And they can't pinpoint it. That's why our emotional state is one of the biggest predictors of a child's behavior. And so, any talk that I do, any consultations that I do, or therapy that I do, I'm always working on changing, adults' behaviors first, working on their emotion regulation first. I'm never going to teach a child how to regulate their emotions if they're going back into a really tense environment. Okay. So we want to think about that, but we can use it to our advantage as well. So first, we have to stop the negative emotions from taking over, right? We want to use emotional contagion in a way that's going to help kids. Now, it always starts with us. As I say, we got to recognize when we're absorbing emotions that aren't ours, right? Especially if we're watching the news, just get off the news, get off social media. There's so much. Those places are where this negative contagion really sort of lives and flourishes. So we can kind of step back and think about, is this feeling mine? Or am I picking it up from someone else or from the environment around me? It's important that you're creating emotional boundaries. So if someone around you is in a negative mood, imagine yourself sort of in this protective bubble that keeps their energy out. I actually did this a lot when I first started therapy, just taking on, and I was working with really hard situations, really severe abuse and neglect, and just lots of things going on. And I could imagine myself surrounded in this, I kind of had like this rosy colored force field around me to sort of protect myself, to be able to be empathetic, but be able to not absorb, that energy into me. That can be really helpful, even just imagining, but even taking breaks from any emotional overload, right? Do whatever you need to do to keep your own emotions protected from other people's, especially, if you go into a meeting and it's really tense, what can you do to kind of shed that off, just to shake it off a little bit and making sure your emotions aren't seeping onto your kids. It's okay. Of course, I'm always saying you need to feel anger and frustration and grief and sadness and all of those things just as much as kids do. We just need to be able to model good emotion regulation and not try to bottle it up and say everything's fine. Kids can pick up on that. So our job is really to be this emotional thermostat, not the thermometer. right? A thermometer reacts to the temperature around it, right? A thermostat sets the temperature. So we are going to be a thermostat, not a thermometer. Okay. We need to be an emotional thermostat for kids. They take their cues from us. So we really got to do this by setting the tone before chaos happens and not being affected if they're coming home and they're stressed and you're in a happy mood, that you're not snapping back if they're snapping at you, right? We're trying to establish that calmness. We can express if we're feeling frustrated, do what we need to do, but otherwise we're using calm tones, calm facial expressions, bright wide eyes, just opening our eyes up just softens the face, right? And just helps create a little bit of calm. If you look and sound calm, kids are going to start to feel calm as well. So just opening your eyes, making them wide, you're modeling curiosity. Curiosity is the key to keep that prefrontal cortex online, right? So we need to ensure that we're modeling all of these things and we're not not observing, absorbing their frustration, right? How can we model how to handle that frustration instead? So we're not absorbing it, we're not passing it on. We want to be a channel, not a dam. So if a child's upset, don't match their energy. That's often what we see, right? We start matching the kid's energy and they're escalating and we're getting louder and we're escalating and we're just making it worse. We need to create that calm, right? Put that little snow globe down, let the snow start to settle, validate, right? Validate their experience. And then just kind of show them how to shift. And you're going to notice that shift too. So, in a classroom, if it's feeling wild and chaotic, we're not going to raise our voice to match the energy. I always tell teachers, do the opposite. Lower your volume, right? Your tendency is to want to yell. How do you lower your volume? Slow your movements. Kids are going to naturally mirror you, and we can do this in the home as well. So if our kiddo comes home angry, maybe they're explosive, they're kicking their shoes off, right? Instead of reacting with frustration and correcting their behavior and telling them to put their shoes away, we want to validate, boy, it looks like you had a really tough day. Do you want to talk about it or take a break? What do you need right now? Your calm presence is going to help them reset. Don't try to change their minds. Don't tell them to calm down, right? We just need to understand and come to the situation with curiosity and humility. And I'm here for you to support you. So, one piece of homework, it's to be a detective yourself initially, right? Pay attention to your own emotional state. Where do you need to put some emotional boundaries in? And then notice your emotional state around your kids and notice how your mood affects them and maybe vice versa, right? And then practice setting the emotional tone. Maybe do that for a couple of days of detective work and then just practice shifting that emotional tone, right? Maybe try slowing down, speaking calmly, especially in a chaotic moment, and just see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen, right? Normally, I say as soon as we start changing our behaviors, we're going to see an increase in their behaviors, and that might happen. So we just need to pay attention. We want to teach kids about emotional contagion too. First, we're going to play this detective, we're going to set that tone. But over time, we can use that. We can show things like videos or music just to see how they're affected by those, right? And then we can start to reflect on whether or not, how did they feel better or worse listening to the music, watching the video, and then in relationships and interactions, have they ever felt better just because someone smiled at them? Right? Start being detectives, seeing how their mood is affected by others around them and what others do, right? I know if I'm up and smiling, like walking down the street and smiling and saying hello, other people usually reciprocate. But if I'm scowling, they're like, they're going to be more snippy at me. You can even experiment with those kinds of things. It's really helpful, though, for kids to understand that they can catch emotions, but they can also learn to control, what they want to pick up and what they want to spread. Okay, that can be really helpful, especially when we're in calm moments, right? So going and practicing that quite intentionally, quite purposely. It can be helpful to recognize those emotions and notice how their mood is shifting when they're changing their energy levels as well. Teens especially really need to work on this. There's a lot of emotional contagion at school, and if they're coming home drained, we can ask them, what kind of energy did you pick up from others today? What were your and what was your energy like through the day? What was other people's energy like through the day? Right? Just starting to look at all of those kinds of things and see if they can just experiment, hanging out with different people with different energy or you know, exerting different energy and what happens. That self-awareness is really the first step to being able to manage emotions. But we just need to be aware of the bigger context because if we think it's always our problem to solve and always, we always need to be happy and calm and all of these things, it's going to be really hopeless and helpless over time because they're just going to feel like, what's wrong with me? There's something wrong with me, not recognizing all of the influences around them. So I kind of alluded to social media, but I really can't talk about emotion contagion without talking about social media because that definitely affects our emotion regulation. First of all, screens just affects the part of the brain that helps us self-regulate and manage our emotion. And so kids aren't getting the practice to be able to self-regulate when they're on screens. But social media specifically, it's not neutral. It's designed to trigger emotions. Whatever the emotions, whatever the platform, they all thrive on high emotional engagement. And where do we feel the strongest emotions physiologically in our brain? It's usually those unpleasant, uncomfortable emotions: fear, stress, anger. The largest neuroscientist research teams, they work for places like Apple. They're not at a university to do the good for the general public. They are specifically at places where they know how to get that brain hooked into whatever it is that they're trying to sell. Cell phones, games, right? They have the largest neuroscientist research team. They know all about the brain and how to get it hooked. And it hooks into that strongest part of the brain, the emotional brain. And most importantly, the reward center of the brain. The brain is all about rewards and it's going to do more of whatever it feels better. Even if in the moment, like even if our rational brain saying this is not good for us, because it feels so good in the reward part of the brain, we're going to keep doing it, right? If you've ever been on social media and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to go to bed, or you've been engaged in something, I got to go to bed, right? But you keep doing it anyway, even though we know it's not healthy for us. Now, posts that spark a lot of strong emotion, usually anger and upset, those are the ones that we know spread faster, especially than neutral content. Likes, shares, comments, all of those act like little dopamine hits. And so that's reinforcing those emotional highs and lows. Now, are those posts, ones that are feel good? Most of the ones, like I said, that are shared, and especially across certain platforms, it's usually the darkest, the deepest, darkest. We know on certain platforms, things that talk about death and suicide and self-harming behaviors, those are the ones that are the most viral. So then, if we're looking at those posts, we're going to get more of them because they're higher in the algorithms. We're just going to get more of the same. So now we're on these emotional roller coasters. One moment we're inspired or we're laughing at a cute little animal and we're getting a hit from a like that we just had or a moment that we just shared. And now the next one, we're angry at a stranger's comment or we're stressed out because of an upsetting news story. And then we're getting bombarded with all of these negative things. The more we engage emotionally on these platforms, the harder it is to really step back and try to self-regulate. Your self-regulation part of the brain is offline. You are not practicing, right? It's the social media, it's got you hooked in, and that's how social media really influences our emotions. We don't even recognize or realize it. Doom scrolling is a major problem, right? It's when we keep just scrolling through negative news or distressing content, even though it's making us feel worse, right? We just can't stop it. And there's a problem like with some of the, I mean, all social media really can get us sucked in, but there's certain things that like YouTube, what are our kids watching? Things like YouTube and TikTok, it's just nonstop video, one after another, after another, after another, after another. It's really hard to stop, right? And this is just triggering the brain's response, the stress response, right? So when that stress response is triggered, it floods us with cortisol, the stress hormone, and it's addictive, which is even worse. We just can't stop ourselves, even though when we know we should, right? Our brains are wired to focus on threats. It's a survival mechanism. Even though our rational brain just knows it's online, our physiological, our body and our nervous system and that emotional brain doesn't know the difference. And so social media is really exploiting us and exploiting that survival mechanism in our brain by feeding us content that keeps us engaged, even when it's really harmful. So the result is we see increased anxiety, stress, emotional exhaustion, just a sense of helplessness from just seeing so much negativity without any solutions. And then we see sleep problems, right? Because scrolling at night keeps our brains overstimulated and we just can't get out of it. So, this is a major area where we really need to protect ourselves and protect our kids from the emotional overload. All of the teens that I work with and young adults who do get off of social media, it's transformative. Like, truly, they just feel like, why didn't I do that before? They can see such a difference in their mood and their outlook, in their energy levels, right? I think that that's really important to think about. I do have other episodes on this, so check that out, right? I've got lots that I do talk about screens and different resources. I'll put some in the show notes. But just quickly, just a couple of ideas I want to talk about. For sure, we want to be intentional with social media or screens. Before you open any screen or any app, ask yourself, why am I going into this? Is it to connect with friends? Is it to learn something new? Or is it just to consume, just to pass time? I'm bored, right? Or whatever. We want to do that ourselves. We want to model that. And we want to make sure kids are asking, why am I picking up my phone right now? The only two times I pick up my phone are to take a picture or to do Duolingo, right? But I've got a set time when I'm doing Duolingo and I make sure it's not going to, get in the way of anything else. We want to avoid any mindless scrolling. If you don't know why you're picking up the phone or that kiddo can't express the purpose of why they're picking up that phone or that screen or whatever it is, don't pick it up. Look at who you're following. Follow accounts that bring joy and growth and balance in your learning and teach kids that too, right? I would set a scroll cutoff, right? After a minute, I wouldn't even just get into scrolling, to be quite honest. I don't use social media, obviously, for things like this, getting my podcast out, but I don't go on to social media. I actually have a software program that just I'll put it in and it will just send it out to all of my social media. So I don't have to go into social media because it's so easy to get sucked in. But no more than a few minutes, definitely not before bedtime, at least a couple of hours before bedtime. Have a do not disturb mode, right? Or some app that just blocks for better focus and just to help you because it's really hard to self-regulate on these screens, especially if they're meant to suck us in. Better yet, I would just put the phone away in a different room completely, right? Instead of tech-free times, maybe just teach your kids and have a life that's tech-free always. Your life is tech-free. But then maybe you get tech at certain times for certain purposes, right? Versus normally what we have is a tech-filled life, except for these couple of times. Flip it around, right? Um, One thing that I've done that's actually quite magical is turning it into black and white. Turn your phone into black and white. All of the colors and all of the apps, it's like a little Vegas slot machine, right? That's just like trying to grab your attention. Turn it into black and white. I actually have a little button that, when I go on to do Duolingo, I'm always in black and white, but like pictures and stuff like that, I've just got a button that I can quickly turn it to color. But then I turn it back to black and white. It really does make a difference. Whatever you do, definitely have breaks. Those are very important. I would make real rules like no phones anywhere in the room when there's meals, right? If it's on the table, even if you've turned it off, even if you've got it turned over, it's still there and our brain is still hooked into it. And we're still going to think, even subconsciously, about that. We want it out of mind, out of sight. If kids know that it's not accessible, their mind isn't going to be hooked into it, worrying about, what messages they're missing. Definitely get it out of their bedrooms. That's so important because all of the negative effects that we see of screens is worse when kids have access in their bedrooms. Curate, curate their feed. That's okay. Curate your feed, curate your kids' feeds. Just make sure there's some emotional balance. Unfollow anything that's toxic, anything that's triggering. That's really important. Follow pages that focus on things that you love, maybe mental health, but positivity, real life connections, all of those things are important. Only engage in meaningful conversations. Don't get into reactionary comments. I don't even look at comments, right? You want to make sure you're engaging in something meaningful. Teach kids to regulate their emotions online as well. Ask them, how do certain posts make you feel, right? What kinds of things make you feel good and give you energy? What kind of things suck you, suck the soul out of you, right? Help them recognize when they're emotionally overwhelmed. Replace any scrolling with real world activities. So, we're not just going to take the phone away, we're actually going to fill it. Maybe we're going to go for a walk. We're going to listen to music. My girls love going. We've created most people are opening up their houses, like open concept. We're closing in walls and we've got one little room that's just cozy and we've got a record player in there and the girls just love going in and listening to music. Maybe it's calling a friend instead of turning on social media and messaging, right? We're doing art, maybe do journaling, getting outside. I mean, that's huge too. Just having those really healthy outlets, that's going to be important. So I'm going to have a little sort of list of things to do, like tracking your emotions while using social media, noticing how different types of posts make you feel, paying attention to your stress levels, notice if your mood shifts, any emotional triggers, right? Looking at how you can make your life a tech-free life, maybe with time blocks where you have access to techs. Right, or to any of the tech things, that's going to be important. But really, you might even want to try like 24 hours. If you think you could do that, I mean, okay, do a 24-hour social media detox and notice how your emotions shift. But I would actually encourage you to go even longer. How long could you go, right? Could you go for a week, 2 weeks, right? The longer you go, if you can do a whole month, you're really going to help detox, pull your brain and the reward system of your brain out of those hooked social medias that are trying to keep you addicted to it. So I'll leave it there. I'll have some more notes and ideas in the show notes, but enjoy the rest of your day. For now, help those kiddos be bold and courageous, and I will see you next time.